Hey folks, having problems with your sleep? Having problems concentrating after waking up with a poor night's sleep? Well, I've got just the thing for you. It's creatine and it's great. Yeah, the same creatine that you take for your muscles is also good for your brain and your sleep. Let's talk about it. So, what is creatine? First of all, creatine is not a drug. It's a natural substance found in the body. We make our own creatine, but we also get it from our food. One of its primary purposes as an ergogenic aid in exercise is to act as a phosphate donor in the production of energy. However, recent research has shown that creatine is especially beneficial for the brain as well. Now, I've spoken in previous videos on how megadoses of creatine helped me recover from the TBI CTE damage that I received in Afghanistan, and there's other studies to demonstrate various antidepressive, anti-anxiety effects, assisting with PTSD symptoms, and other psychological disorders. But we're not here to talk about any of that stuff in this video. We're here to talk about how creatine can affect our sleep. So in this 2006 study, they got two groups. One group they gave 5 grams of creatine to 4 times a day for a week, and then the other group was just a placebo. They gave them random tests and intermittent exercise at 0, 6, 12, and 24 hours of sleep deprivation. They found that at 24 hours sleep deprivation, the creatine group had significantly less change in performance in tests of random movement generation, reaction time, balance, and mood state. So they concluded from this study that after 24 hours of sleep deprivation, creatine had a positive effect on mood state and tasks that place a heavy stress on the prefrontal cortex. So that's pretty interesting, but that was the way back times of 2006. We've done a lot of science in creatine since then. Cut to 5 years later in the still way back time of 2011, where the Journal of International Society of Sports Nutrition conducted a study to see which had a greater impact on sleep deprivation, caffeine administration or creatine on the execution of repeated rugby skills. Sports. As expected, the sleep-deprived players with nothing got worse, but the sleep-deprived players with either caffeine or creatine saw no drop in skill performance, and in fact, the creatine dosing of 50 or 100 milligrams per kilogram seemed to be equivalent to a caffeine dose of 1 or 5 milligrams per kilogram. So for me, as a 70 kilogram individual, that would be a 70 or 350 milligram dose of caffeine, which that makes sense, or a 3.5 gram to 7 gram dose of creatine, which also makes sense. And mind you, while it's not the subject matter of this particular video, the standard dose for ergogenic benefits in muscle is 5 grams, just 5 grams straight up, and the kind of widely accepted dosing for the neuroprotective mental benefits of creatine is a much higher 20 gram per day dose. So this prefrontal cortex skill protective dose seems to be in a sweet spot between the ergogenic benefit for muscle dose and the higher antidepressant, anti-PTSD, we can call it neuroprotective dose. So like many other supplements, myo-inositol is another one that comes to mind. Creatine's benefits seem to be dose dependent, starting at the lower doses for the muscle ergogenic benefit as an energy substrate, larger doses seemingly acutely protective against the deleterious effects in the prefrontal cortex of sleep deprivation, with much higher doses seeming to have benefit in the case of things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and some resolution from the symptoms of TBI, CTE, and some other forms of brain dysfunction. The last study I want to talk about in this video is a more recent one published February of this year, 2024, in Scientific Reports that states, quote, single-dose creatine improves cognitive performance and induces changes in cerebral high-energy phosphates during sleep deprivation. End quote by Andreas Bauer et al. I didn't want to butcher the other scientists' names. So what they did was they got 15 individuals, about half were females, 8 to be specific, aged 20 to 28. They even took note of the detail that 13 of them were right-handed. I'm not sure how that's relevant, but scientific rigor, I guess. None had sleep disorders, no psychiatric or neurological diseases, no alcohol or drug abuse. None of them were smokers, they didn't take any medication, and they did a 7-item insomnia severity index questionnaire over the past 2 weeks. So basically they want to make sure that they had no issues sleeping prior to the test. Then 2 weeks before the test, every day they had to record that they went to sleep at exactly 11 p.m. and woke up exactly at 7 a.m. for those 2 weeks. And 48 hours prior to the measurement 2 weeks to get a baseline, they had to cut out all caffeine and alcohol. Okay, so briefly, what they did was they had the subjects stay in a lab room next to an MRI for 2 nights, and they were sleep deprived, and they couldn't like watch movies or mess around on a computer or anything like that. And then they'd give them a minimum of a 5-day break, and then they'd bring them in and give them another 2 nights. And one night they would measure how their sleep deprivation went with creatine, and then the other night they would measure how their sleep deprivation went with the placebo. They'd give them like word tests and math tests and things like that, and then with the MRI they would see what kind of brain activities they have, and they would measure the various scores on the tests and things like this. It's actually a really well-constructed study in my opinion, and I encourage everyone to look into it yourself. I'm going to post a picture after I'm done with my toaster bar here. But in conclusion, quote, administering a high dose of creatine has been shown to reverse partially cellular stress-induced effects caused by sleep deprivation, showing a maximum effect 4 hours after administration. End quote. So like that original study way back in 2006 demonstrated, we've known for quite a while that creatine is protective against the deleterious effects of sleep deprivation. We just thought that it had to be administered over a meaningful period of time. Come to find out, you could take a mega dose, and peaking at about 4 hours after that mega dose to about 9 hours out from the mega dose, you have that protective effect against the deleterious effects of sleep deprivation on performance. So there you have it, folks. Creatine. What can't this stuff do? And the best part is we're figuring all this stuff out long after it's been proven to be safe and it's relatively inexpensive. I myself have taken 20 or more grams per day for years and bumped that up to 30 or more on days where I have to function at a high level off minimal sleep. For this and a myriad of other reasons, athlete or no, creatine tops my list of must-take supplements just for general health and performance, mental or otherwise. If you enjoy my content, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Consistency is a superpower. Stay in the fight. Thanks for watching.